Do you know anyone who has tried to quit pornography over and over but keeps failing? Some people make it 3 days. Some make it 2 weeks if they're lucky. They delete everything from their phones. They install blocking software. They make promises to God, to their partners, to themselves. And then one night, when they're alone and bored, or stressed from work, or they see something triggering online, they relapse again. And the cycle repeats until they accept a terrible truth. Maybe I'm just weak. Maybe I'll fight this forever. You've probably met someone like this. Maybe that person is you. And if it is, I need you to understand something. The reason you keep failing has nothing to do with how much you want to quit. It has everything to do with the type of discipline you're using. You're using soft discipline, the kind that relies on motivation and feelings. The kind that works when things are easy, but collapses the moment things get hard. What you need is something different. Something most people will never have because it requires you to become someone most people will never become. There was a Japanese samurai named Miyamoto Musashi who lived 400 years ago. He fought over 60 duels to the death and never lost. Not once. People think he won because he was the most skilled swordsman. He wasn't. There were more technically skilled fighters. Musashi won because he had a type of discipline that his opponents couldn't comprehend. A discipline so absolute, so unbreakable, that losing wasn't even possible in his mind. And the system he used to build this discipline, the same system that made him undefeated in combat, can be used to beat any addiction, including the one you're struggling with right now. Before I show you exactly what Musashi's method is, and how a man named Daniel used it to break a 12-year pornography addiction that had destroyed every relationship in his life, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like below, and comment one word: unbreakable. No explanation needed, just that word. It's your declaration that you're ready to become someone different, someone with the scariest level of discipline. This helps me know this content is reaching people who need it. Now, back to the video. Daniel Park was 33 years old and lived in Portland, Oregon. He worked as a graphic designer, making $76,000 a year. He had a small apartment downtown, a decent car, and a job he didn't hate. On the surface, his life looked fine, but Daniel was dying on the inside, and he had been dying slowly for 12 years. Since he was 21 years old, Daniel had been addicted to pornography. Not the casual kind where you watch occasionally, the kind where you watch every single day, multiple times a day. The kind where you've tried to quit 50 times and failed every single time. The kind where you can't remember what it feels like to go more than 3 days without it. 12 years. If he calculated the hours, which he had done during one of his many moments of shame, he'd spent roughly 3,000 hours watching porn. That's 125 full days. More than 4 months of his life just gone. But the time wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what it had done to him as a person. Daniel couldn't look people in the eye anymore. When he talked to women, he felt like they could see through him, like they knew what he'd been looking at the night before. His last relationship had ended 2 years ago. His girlfriend Emily had tried to connect with him physically, and he couldn't. Not because he didn't find her attractive, but because his brain had been rewired by thousands of hours of artificial stimulation. Real intimacy felt boring compared to the screen, and Emily knew something was wrong. She just didn't know what. When she finally asked him directly, "Do you have a porn problem?" Daniel lied. "No, of course not." 2 weeks later, she left. Not because she found proof, but because she could feel the distance between them growing, and she didn't want to waste any more of her life. After Emily left, Daniel tried to quit, for real this time. He deleted his entire collection. He installed blocking software on his laptop and phone. He joined an online nofap community. He made it 14 days, the longest he'd ever gone. And then, one Sunday afternoon, bored and alone in his apartment, he found a way around the blocking software in about 10 minutes. By Sunday evening, he'd relapsed so hard, he watched for 3 hours straight. The shame afterward was so crushing, he could barely function for the next 2 days. He tried therapy. His therapist, a kind woman in her 50s, listened to his story and taught him cognitive behavioral techniques. When you feel the urge, do this breathing exercise. When you feel triggered, call a friend. It helped for about 2 weeks. Then he relapsed again. He tried medication, an antidepressant his doctor said would help with compulsive behaviors. It killed his sex drive entirely and made him feel numb to everything. He stopped taking it after a month. He tried accountability partners, told his best friend Jake about the addiction. Jake was supportive. "Text me whenever you feel tempted, bro. I got you." That worked until Daniel relapsed and was too ashamed to tell Jake, so he just started lying. Yeah, man, still going strong. The lie made the shame even worse. By age 33, Daniel had accepted something dark. He would probably struggle with this for the rest of his life. Some people could quit. He couldn't. That's just who he was. A person without enough discipline. A person who couldn't control himself. A person who would probably die alone because no woman would want to be with someone this weak. Do you know what's worse than being addicted? It's accepting that you'll always be addicted. It's giving up on yourself while you're still alive. But then one night in November, after another relapse, Daniel was sitting at his computer feeling that familiar emptiness. And he typed something into Google he'd never searched before. Not how to quit porn, not porn addiction help. He searched how to develop extreme discipline. He didn't even know why. He was just tired of being weak. He was tired of failing. He wanted to know how people with real discipline, scary discipline, actually lived. The search results were mostly the usual self-help garbage. 10 steps to more discipline. How to build willpower in 30 days. All surface-level advice he'd read 1,000 times. But then, on page 3, he found an article that stopped him. The title, Miyamoto Musashi's Death Discipline, How a Samurai Built Unbreakable Will. The opening line of the article hit him like a punch to the chest. Musashi didn't build discipline through motivation or positive thinking. He built it through the daily practice of dying. Daniel clicked, and for the next 2 hours, he fell into a world he didn't know existed. Miyamoto Musashi was a Japanese swordsman who lived from 1584 to 1645. He fought his first duel to the death at age 13 and killed a grown man. By the time he was 29, he had fought over 60 duels and won every single one. He was never defeated, not once. Most people think Musashi was just naturally talented. But the article explained something different. Musashi won because he had eliminated something from his mind that every other fighter still had, the fear of death. Most samurai trained for years to be skilled. Musashi trained for something else. He trained to accept death so completely that it no longer affected his decisions. Every morning of his life, Musashi performed a ritual. He would sit in meditation and visualize his death in combat, not vaguely, specifically. He would see the blade entering his body, feel the pain, watch his blood drain, experience his consciousness fading, and then he would accept it completely. Today, I am already dead. Everything after this moment is borrowed time. This practice had a name, Shinigurai, preparation for death. By accepting death every single morning, Musashi removed fear from the equation. When he stepped into a duel, he wasn't fighting to survive. He'd already accepted that he was dead. So there was nothing to lose, nothing to be afraid of. No hesitation, no second guessing, just pure action. His opponents, no matter how skilled, still had fear. They still wanted to live. That wanting created hesitation, and hesitation in a sword fight means death. Musashi wrote about this in his book, The Book of Five Rings. He said, "If you do not perceive the way of strategy, even though you study, you will be a beginner forever. The spirit of my school is to win through the way of strategy, no matter what." The way of strategy was simple. Remove everything that creates weakness. And the root of all weakness is the fear of losing what you have. Your life, your reputation, your comfort. When you accept that you've already lost everything, you become unbeatable. Daniel read this, and something clicked in his brain. He'd been trying to quit porn with soft discipline. Discipline that depended on how he felt. Discipline that said, "I'll try my best." Discipline that negotiated with urges. Maybe just once won't hurt. That wasn't discipline. That was weakness, pretending to be discipline. What if he used Musashi's discipline instead? The kind that doesn't negotiate. The kind that doesn't depend on feelings. The kind that's so extreme, it looks inhuman from the outside. The article outlined what it called the Shinigurai Protocol. 3 principles Musashi lived by that created his unbreakable will. First, kakugo. Resolve through acceptance of the worst outcome. Every day, you visualize and accept the worst thing that could happen if you fail. You make peace with it, so it no longer controls you through fear. Second, sutemi. Abandon the self. You stop living for comfort, pleasure, or your own desires. You live for a purpose bigger than yourself. Your discipline serves something beyond you. Third, ichinen. Single-minded focus. You make one decision once, and then you never make it again. You don't wake up every day deciding whether to follow through. The decision was made. Now, you just execute. Daniel realized this was exactly what he'd been missing. He'd been waking up every day and deciding whether to fight his addiction. And some days he'd decide yes. Some days he'd decide no. The decision itself was the weakness. What if he made the decision once, permanently, and then removed the option to choose again? What if he built his life so that relapsing wasn't even a possibility his brain could consider? That night, Daniel didn't make a promise to try harder. He made a different kind of commitment, a Musashi-level commitment, and the next morning, his life changed completely. Daniel woke up at 5:30 a.m., not because he felt motivated, because that's what the protocol required. He sat on the floor of his apartment, back straight, and did something he'd never done before. He visualized his death. Not his literal death, the death of the life he wanted. He imagined himself at age 50, still addicted to porn, alone in a studio apartment, having wasted another 17 years. Never married, no children, no real relationships, just him and a screen. He saw it in detail, the loneliness, the regret, the emptiness, and then he said out loud, "I accept this. If I don't change, this is what happens, and I accept it." This sounds depressing, but here's what it did. It removed the fantasy. Daniel had been living in a fog of, someday I'll quit, someday wasn't real, someday was a lie. He told himself to avoid the truth. The truth was, if he didn't change today, he would become that 50-year-old man. There was no someday, there was only today. And today, he had a choice: die to his addiction, or die to his future. He chose to kill the addiction, kakugo. He'd accepted the worst outcome. Now came sutemi, abandon the self. Daniel asked himself a question Musashi would have asked. What am I living for? Not what do I want? Not what makes me happy? What am I willing to sacrifice everything for? His answer came immediately. He wanted to become the kind of man who could be a good father someday. He didn't have kids, didn't even have a girlfriend. But that was the vision, a man his future children would respect. A man who didn't hide parts of himself in shame. A man with integrity. That became his purpose. Not quitting porn for himself. Quitting porn because the person he was now couldn't be that father. The addict version of Daniel wasn't worthy of that role, so the addict had to die. And when you're living for something bigger than yourself, discipline stops being a struggle. It becomes a requirement. There's no negotiation. You either become that person, or you don't. Daniel chose to become. Then came ichinen, single-minded focus, one decision, made once, never revisited. Daniel made a rule that day, a rule he would never break under any circumstance. No screens in his bedroom, ever. His laptop stayed in the living room, permanently. His phone stayed in the kitchen overnight, charging. After 9 p.m., if he wanted to use a screen, he had to leave his apartment and go to a coffee shop. This wasn't about blocking software or willpower. This was about removing the possibility entirely. Most people would say, that's too extreme. What if you need your phone for an emergency? Musashi would say, what emergency requires pornography? If there's a real emergency, your phone is in the kitchen. The entire point was to make relapsing so difficult, so inconvenient, and so humiliating that his brain would stop considering it an option. He also made another rule. Every day, at 5:30 a.m., he would do the death visualization. Every single day. No exceptions. Sick, do it. Traveling, do it. Tired, do it. The rule didn't care about his feelings. The rule was the rule. The first week was hell. Daniel's brain was screaming for the dopamine it was used to getting from porn. He'd wake up, do the death visualization, and his mind would immediately start bargaining. This is stupid. You're being too hard on yourself. Just relax the rules a little. But ichinen meant no negotiation. The decision was made. His body could complain all it wanted. The decision didn't change. By day 7, his brain started to realize something. The old pattern wasn't working anymore. The urges would come, sometimes intensely, but there was nowhere for them to go. His laptop was in the living room, where his roommate could see the screen. His phone was in the kitchen. He'd have to make 5 deliberate choices to relapse. Get out of bed, walk to the kitchen, get his phone, go back to his room, search for porn. That many steps created a gap where his conscious mind could intervene, and every time he felt an urge, he'd remember the death visualization, the 50-year-old version of himself, alone and full of regret. Is 5 minutes of pleasure worth becoming that person? The answer was always no. Week 2 brought a different challenge, the flatline. His brain's dopamine receptors were so fried from years of overstimulation that without porn, he felt nothing. No motivation, no energy, no desire for anything. He'd heard about this from the nofap community, but didn't truly understand it until he lived it. Everything felt gray. Food didn't taste good, music didn't sound good. Even things he used to enjoy felt pointless. This is where most people relapse. They think something's wrong. They think they need the porn to feel normal again. But Daniel had read Musashi. Musashi fought in battles where he was exhausted, starving, wounded, and he won anyway. Because discipline doesn't require feeling good. It requires doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Daniel went through the flat line like a samurai would go through a battlefield. One step at a time, one day at a time. Wake up, death visualization, cold shower to shock his nervous system awake. Breakfast, work, gym, dinner, read, sleep, repeat. No deviation, no negotiation. His roommate asked him, "Dude, are you okay? You're like a robot." Daniel's response, "I'm not a robot. I'm just done being weak." By week 4, something shifted. The flatline started lifting. His energy came back, but different than before. Clearer, more stable. Not the manic high of dopamine spikes, but a steady baseline of feeling okay. He also noticed his mind was quieter. For years, his internal monologue had been constant noise, intrusive thoughts about porn, shame about his addiction, anxiety about the future. Now there was more space, more silence. His brain was healing. Month 2. Daniel had gone 60 days without porn, the longest streak of his adult life. But more importantly, he'd gone 60 days living with Musashi-level discipline, and that discipline had started affecting other areas of his life. He'd been waking up at 5:30 a.m. for 2 months straight, so he started using the extra morning time to work on a design project he'd been putting off for years. A passion project, not for clients, just for himself. By month 3, that project became a portfolio piece good enough to show potential employers. Month 4, a design agency in Portland reached out. They'd seen his work online. They wanted to interview him. Daniel got the job, $95,000 a year, a $19,000 raise. His new boss told him during the hiring conversation, "Your portfolio is great, but honestly, what impressed me most was your consistency. Your GitHub shows you've been committing work every single day for 4 months. That kind of discipline is rare." Daniel almost laughed. The discipline that got him the job was the same discipline that had saved him from his addiction. They were one and the same. Month 6, 180 days clean. Daniel's brain had rewired. The urges still came occasionally, but they were quiet, like background noise instead of a screaming demand. He'd proven to himself that he could sit with discomfort without acting on it. He'd proven that his decisions were stronger than his feelings. He'd proven that he wasn't the weak person he'd believed he was for 12 years. He was someone else now, someone with scary discipline. But the real test came on day 210. Daniel was stressed from work. A project had gone wrong. A client was angry. He got home late, exhausted, frustrated. His roommate was gone for the weekend. He was alone in the apartment. His phone was in his room because he'd forgotten to put it in the kitchen the night before. And for the first time in 7 months, the urge hit him like it used to. Intense, demanding, overwhelming. His brain said, "You've been good for 7 months. You deserve a break." Just this once. No one will know. This was the moment where most people relapse, because they think they've won. They think 7 months means they're cured. But addiction doesn't work that way. The neural pathways are still there, weakened, but there, waiting. Daniel felt the urge peak. His hand moved toward his phone, and then he did the one thing that saved him. He visualized his death. He saw himself relapsing. He saw the shame afterward. He saw the 7 months erased. He saw himself back at day 0, having to start over. He saw the 50-year-old version of himself, alone, full of regret. And he said out loud, in his empty apartment, "I am already dead. This urge cannot kill me because I am already dead." The urge peaked for about 90 seconds. It felt unbearable, like he would die if he didn't act on it. But he sat with it, he breathed, he watched it, and then it faded. Not disappeared, faded. From a 10 to a 6. Still there, but manageable. He walked to the kitchen, left his phone on the counter, went to his room, and went to sleep. When he woke up the next morning, the urge was gone, and he realized something profound. The urge was never as powerful as it felt in the moment. It was just a wave, and waves pass. Month 12, 1 full year, 365 consecutive days without pornography. Daniel wasn't the same person anymore. He'd killed the addict and become someone new. Someone with the discipline that made other people uncomfortable. And Daniel's answer was always the same. I made a decision, and I don't remake it every day. I just follow it. But the deepest change wasn't the discipline. It was the identity. Daniel was no longer someone trying to quit porn. He was someone who didn't watch porn. That shift sounds small, but it's everything. When you're trying to quit, you're in a war. When you've become someone different, there's no war. It's just who you are. He met a woman named Sarah at a design conference in month 14. They started dating. For the first time in his adult life, Daniel was fully present in a relationship. No shame, no hidden parts of himself, no mental images from porn interfering with real intimacy. Just connection, Sarah noticed. You're different from other guys. You're actually here. She had no idea about his history. She just experienced the result of his transformation. Today, Daniel is 35. He's been porn-free for over 2 years. He makes $108,000 as a senior designer. He's engaged to Sarah. They're planning a wedding for next summer. He still does the death visualization every morning. He still wakes up at 5:30 a.m. He still follows the same rules he set 2 years ago. Not because he's tempted, but because the discipline isn't about porn anymore. It's about who he is. The scariest level of discipline isn't something you do, it's something you become. Here's Musashi's complete method. If you're serious about quitting, not just trying again, this is your path. First, kakugo, acceptance of death. Every morning for the next 30 days, sit for 10 minutes and visualize your worst future. If you don't change, who do you become? See it in detail, the loneliness, the shame, the wasted years. Then say out loud, I accept this. If I don't change, this is my future. Make peace with the worst outcome. This removes the fear of facing your addiction. You've already seen what happens if you lose. Now, you can fight without fear. Second, Sutemi, abandon the self. Ask yourself, what am I living for? Not what do I want? What purpose is bigger than my comfort? For Daniel, it was becoming a man worthy of being a father. For you, it might be different. But it must be something that matters more than 5 minutes of pleasure. When you have a purpose bigger than yourself, discipline stops being a struggle. It becomes non-negotiable. You either become that person or you don't. Third, Ichinen. One decision, made once. Make your rules today, not guidelines, rules. Rules you will never break. Examples, no screens in bedroom, ever. No being alone with a device after 9 p.m. Phone charges in a different room overnight. Laptop stays in public spaces. Make the rules so strict that relapsing requires 5 or more deliberate choices. Then follow them. Every day. No exceptions. Sick? Follow the rules. Tired? Follow the rules. Stressed? Follow the rules. The rule doesn't care how you feel. Fourth, daily death practice. Every morning, 10 minutes, same time. Visualize your death future if you relapse. Make peace with it. This removes fear from your day. When an urge hits, you've already accepted the worst, so the urge has no power. Fifth, expect the flat line. Weeks 2 through 8, you'll feel nothing. This is normal. Your brain is healing. Don't relapse to feel something again. Push through. The other side is clarity. Daily reminder. Musashi's discipline looks scary from the outside, because it is. It requires you to become someone most people will never become. Someone who makes one decision and never revisits it. Someone who doesn't negotiate with themselves. Someone who's already accepted death, so fear has no leverage. This isn't soft discipline, this is warrior discipline, and it works. Daniel isn't special. He's not naturally disciplined. He was weak for 12 years. He failed 50 times, but he found Musashi's method and became someone else. You can do the same, not by trying harder, by deciding once and never deciding again. Your challenge, 30 days. Wake up every day at the same time. Do the 10-minute death visualization. Follow your rules with 0 exceptions. No negotiation, no just this once. On day 31, come back here and comment one word, unbreakable. That's your proof. Subscribe to this channel, and remember, the scariest level of discipline is the only level that works, because anything less leaves room for negotiation. And negotiation is where you lose. Make the decision. Kill the person you were. Become the person you're meant to be. If you've watched this far, thank you. Walk with honor, accept death, become unbreakable,